The Bad Batch is officially over, so let's rank all 16 episodes of Season 1. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Diz TV. If this is your first time here, welcome home. We're so glad to have you. And there is a lot of episodes, 16 of them in fact, that we have to get through. So my rankings will be a little quicker, more speedy. Anyway, let's dive right into Bad Batch Season 1, which honestly was pretty good. Kicking things off at number 16 is episode 13, Infested. The reason why this one, in my opinion, is the last on this list is because of the fact that it's towards the end of the season and it still feels like a early season episode. The way that the season progressed was more of a banger of a first episode, and then we get into, you know, some missions, some stuff that kind of feels more mercenary based, kind of similar to how Mando is in a way, to getting towards, you know, this big thing at the end of the season with Kamino, and this didn't lead up towards that. It still felt like very early in the season, even though it is episode 13. It had a weird placement of where it was done. Overall, I mean, it's a solid episode. It's nothing too spectacular, but it was still pretty enjoyable. Coming in at number 15 is episode 3. Very early in the season, we see some drama happening with the Bad Batches. They're trying to figure out who they are. This episode is great, but it doesn't really have anything that really stands out. It has some decent character development for Hunter and Omega's relationship, but again, nothing really stands out with it. Moving on to episode 14, episode 10, Common Ground. This one is very similar to Replacements, where it has a lot more focus on character development, and it is a good, solid episode. But there's a lot of things I honestly forgot about this episode, such as the whole arc with the Separatist Republic thing that happened, well, happens throughout this episode. Again, pretty solid, but nothing of too significance. Coming in at number 13 is Rampage. I like this one a little more than Common Ground, and the reason for that is I feel there's a lot better action in this, and we're still getting to see the dynamic of Omega along with the Bad Batch starting to develop in this episode, and it goes really, really well. Plus, there's a bunch of Clone Wars references, and on top of all that, we also do get to see a Rancor, which is always a fun time. Coming in at number 12 is Decommissioned, another episode that is more of that, you know, mission-based storyline that we see in the beginning of the season. This one's another solid episode. Now, granted, it does have the Martez sisters, which nobody really likes, but I felt they were blended very, very well into the story here and doing work to help the, as we all know, the rebellion at this point. But it really is something pretty good, and it does have a great Echo joke in there. So. Coming in at number 11 is Cut and Run. The second episode of the series is a pretty great one. We get to reintroduce ourselves to Cut LaQuate and his family. They have all grown up a little bit, and it's a nice episode to see, and it felt like a good second episode to start off the season with. It just, overall, it was quite fun. Coming in at number 10 is episode 4, Cornered. We get to introduce ourselves to a younger version of Ming-Na Wen's character, Fennec Shand, and that was great to see. Overall, I mean, she's a new bounty hunter, so to get to see more of her makes us appreciate the character more, and it fit well with the story. The Bad Batch is still trying to find themselves after the war, And this is a good way to set that up, as well as set up the storyline with Omega being this like high credit target that people are looking for. Coming in at number 9 is episode 11, Devil's Deal. Now, the reason why I think I ranked this a little bit low is not because the story is bad or any of that is not great. In fact, it's some good Star Wars, but it just, the show's about the Bad Batch and it didn't have them in it. Now, granted, it was a change of pace from what we've seen in the show. I don't know. I have mixed feelings on this episode. It was great to see Hera, great to see Chopper and Cham Syndulla and Senator Orphan Ta. But I don't know. It was just kind of, it was a pretty good one. Coming in at number 8 is episode 16, Camino Lost. I like the season finale, don't get me wrong. I think it's pretty good. But I was expecting a little bit more to that. The episodes before the 2-part season finale, War Mantell, set this up to be a big thing, and it didn't really seem that way. While granted it focused more on the Bad Batch, I was hoping for something a little bit more, and that's okay. It still was a solid episode, had some great character development in some aspects. Granted, Crosshair has pretty much stayed the same, and I don't know, I just wish there was a tad bit more. Coming in at number 7 is episode 15, Return to Camino. This is definitely the stronger part of the 2-part season finale. It has a lot more weight, it has a lot more emotion, and it's done quite well. We get to see the Bad Batch, all of them, including Crosshair, in some action, and it leads to a emotional end with the destruction of Camino. That was, man, I wasn't expecting it to be that powerful, but it really, really was. It definitely signals the real end of the Clone Wars. Like, Rebels did have that Clone Wars based episode, but this really felt like it's over. Coming in at number 6 is episode 12, Rescue on Ryloth. Another episode in the 2-part Ryloth arc, I guess. I don't really know how to call it, but this one is really, really fun. We get to see a lot more action with this. We get to see Hera a lot more, her origins as a pilot, which is great, and just get to see the Bad Batch working together. All that just makes for a pretty fun episode. It definitely had a lot of Rebels vibes, for sure, and I think that's why I really like this episode. Coming into the top 5 with episode 9, Bounty Lost. Cad Bane is back and better than ever. I was shocked to see him in a few episodes prior, and he did not disappoint with his little episodes that he had. This one is a very strong episode, not of course because it's featuring Cad Bane, but because of just story-wise, how it fits in, what exactly Cad Bane and also Fennec are trying to do when it comes to Omega. And it was a lot of fun. And yes, the main reason I love this episode is because of Cad Bane. Coming in at number 4 is episode 7, Battle Scars. Rex is back and better than ever in this episode, and this really is a very strong episode. We see the Bad Batch getting to take their inhibitor chips out, and it just makes for a very solid episode. There's not like too much action in this episode. It's more character driven. While there is some action, but there's a lot of exposition on the Bad Batch trying to figure out their future, as well as seeing what Rex is up to at this point. As of right now, we know him and Ahsoka have split off into 2 different directions, so we know that, but we don't know exactly what he's up to. There's hints in this episode, but overall, I really enjoyed this one. Coming at number 3 is episode 8, Reunion. The action-packed part of this little 3-episode arc was well done. It was amazing. We get to see Crosshair interact with the Bad Batch for the first time since they left Camino, and it was just intense from beginning to end, non-stop action, and with the end of the reintroduction to Cad Bane was amazing. Their little like Western inspired duel. I loved it, and it left with such a cliffhanger. One of the best episodes. Coming in at number 2 is episode 14, War Mantell. As I mentioned a little earlier, this set up the season finale to be bigger than it actually was, but this was a fantastic episode. You had action, you had adventure, you have a reintroduction to a character, a younger Gregor, which was amazing to see. And just what this episode set up was amazing. We get to see the start of the TK troopers with actual like volunteers instead of clone troopers. We get to see that transition, which is amazing. That's some of the stuff I've wanted to see for such a long time, is the transition from clone troopers to stormtroopers, because that is something that we haven't seen in any sort of Star Wars medium, and this episode really delivered on that. My hope for season 2 is we'll get a lot more of this styled episode because it was fantastic. But coming in at number 1 is episode 1, Aftermath. Granted, this episode was an hour long, but it really delivered on just the shock and the intensity of what happens after Order 66. Now, granted, there are some things that like kind of go against earlier Star Wars media, more or less, with the Kanan stuff, or rather Caleb in this sense, and all that transpired with Caleb and his master, and all that stuff that we saw at the beginning of that episode. But we see the Bad Batch struggling not only with what is happening with the clones in Order 66, but also with each other, particularly with Crosshair versus the rest of the group. We get to meet Omega for the first time, which is great. Overall, this is definitely the best Bad Batch episode by far. It just was jam-packed with everything we wanted. Overall, this is a really solid season. Now, granted, a lot of people are upset with this. They thought it would be a lot better. And I can understand that a little bit. But the one thing I will say with this is that it feels very much like Clone Wars Season 1 did. In which we got a lot of different stories and it was all great. But it was nothing like, the later seasons of the Clone Wars. It can only go up from here. And I really, really hope that we get to see a lot more of the Empire, a lot more of how things are being formed. All that I am very intrigued to see, and I hope we do get some of that. I also want to see a lot more of the Rebel Alliance, but then again, I don't want to put my expectations too high, because we don't know how long this series will last. But I do think that this can be a really good show. We just have to give it time, just like we did Clone Wars. Clone Wars had some great moments in certain episodes, but not every episode was fantastic. And that's the same way with this series. But overall, I am looking forward to Season 2 as it arrives next year. We have so much Star Wars content next year. It's insane. We have Kenobi, Ahsoka, Bad Batch, Mando Season 3, Book of Boba Fett will have some episodes probably linger into this next year. So much stuff coming next year, but cannot wait till then. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you did enjoy the video. Let me know in the comments down below, what did you think of the Bad Batch series? If you've watched it at all, I love to hear it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a big thumbs up. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below and hit the bell to be notified for more videos on Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, the parks, and so much more. I'll see you all in the next video. May the Force be with you. Goodbye.